Guys, did you know that Moses was a bit of a minstrel? He taught Yisrael a song. What about that? I never knew he taught Yisrael a song. I mean, we know Miriam taught Yisrael a song when they escaped through the Red Sea. I mean, and there were tambourines and all that sort of jazz, but what about Moses' song? Was it music? Was it a poem, just poetry, so they could learn the instructions? How did it go down? Let's have a look today at the text. Yahusha is my rock. That's what today's video is called, my rock. Oh, that spectacular mountain there. We're going to go right into it all here. Coming into Deuteronomy 31 and 32 today. We've only got 4 chapters left and then we're finished. We're going to get through 2. So, Joshua is appointed. Then Moses again spoke to the whole nation of Israel. Guys, I'm 120 years old, unable to go out and come in, and I can't be your leader anymore. That go out and come in is like battle lingo. In the Hebrew language, it's like battle talk. And I can't be your leader anymore. Yahuwah your Elohim has told me that he won't let me cross over the Jordan River, but he's promised that he and Joshua will help you cross over and lead you to attack the nations that live on the other side. Why have I underlined cross over? That's what Hebrew means. Abraham crossed over from the outside to the inside. He crossed over from being in the outside nations to being Yahusha's people, the Hebrews. That's when the word Hebrew crossed over, named after one of Abraham's ancestors. The name came into vogue, the word Hebrew, when Abraham circumcised all these people through the blood covenant. From then on, they were known as Hebrews, the Hebrew people. So you had to cross over to become a Hebrew, like grafting in almost. It's the same today. You have to graft in to be part of Yisrael. So even though they were called Hebrews, the Hebrew nation, once Jacob came along and his name was changed to Yisrael and he had 12 sons, it was more appropriate to call them the nation of Yisrael, not just the nation of Hebrews, you know. But Hebrew meant crossover. So it's fascinating, isn't it? So all through the text is, Yahusha won't let me cross over to the Jordan River, but he's promised that you will cross over and he will help you attack the nations that live on the other side. Yahuwah will destroy those nations, just as he destroyed Sihon and Og, those 2 Amorite kings. But don't forget, whenever you capture a place, make sure you kill everyone who lives there. So always be brave and strong, and don't be afraid of the nations on the other side of the Jordan, because Yahuwah your Elohim will always be at your side, and he will never abandon you. Moses was not saying that he was too old to lead Israel in battle, to go out and come in, his military talk. But rather he was saying that because Yahusha had decided that he wouldn't cross over the Jordan River into the promised land, that his time was up. And a new leader would general the coming set-apart war upon Canaan. It was time to hand over the baton to someone else, pass it over to the next generation, the leadership. So it wasn't because later on when we read he died, he was still bright-eyed, fuzzy-tailed, and all that sort of stuff. He was, limber. He was fit. He was old, but he was fit. So he wasn't dying of old age. He was dying because Yahusha said, "That's enough. Your time's up now." Interesting, isn't it? And up here it says, always be brave and strong. Take this onto yourself, guys. Always be brave and strong. Don't be afraid of the nations. Don't be afraid of the people you have to go and walk amongst in your day. Because if you've got the 3 rules and you are practicing them, what does Yahusha say he'll do? He'll protect you. He'll always be at your side and he will never abandon you. Yeah? If you are behaving the right way, he will bash the crap out of anybody who's not treating you right. So, then Moses called Joshua up in front of the crowd and said, "Joshua, be brave and strong as you lead these people into their land. For Yahuwah made a promise long ago to Yisrael's ancestors that this land would someday belong to Yisrael. Well, that time has now come, and you must divide up the land among the people, because Yahuwah will lead you into the land. He'll always be with you and help you, so don't ever be afraid of your enemies. Don't ever be afraid of your enemies, guys. Don't ever be afraid of people who don't love Yahusha. The world out there, the walking dead, don't be afraid of them. You have the vaccine. You have the antidote to the snake bite, to their cruelty, to their hate, to their violence. You have the antidote. It's behaving Torah, behaving his instructions, you know. And in a simple package, just do the rules. Do the 3 rules. They always work. So he's handing over the reins to Joshua. So Moses wrote down all of these instructions and gave them to the priests, the sons of Levi, and the leaders of Yisrael. And they carried Yahusha's ark of the blood covenant witness. So Moses gave all these instructions to the priests. These instructions are not referring to all the books of Moses, but just the book of Deuteronomy. That was interesting. You often wonder how much they carried around with them. The earlier books of Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, and Numbers were handed down word of mouth. Word of mouth. Yes, it was the finger of Yahusha who carved the 10 words, 10 commandments on stone, but the truth is that the bulk of all the divine laws, commands, and instructions were memorized and transmitted orally. Imagine relying on someone's memory today in this age of technological advances. Even before this age of technological advances, into the age of literature and books and scrolls. Imagine trusting somebody's mind. But this is how it was back in the ancient times. It was all word of mouth, which says something about the translation and scrolls and writings and books and parchments and transliteration and translation of scriptures, doesn't it? But I'm not going to go into that conversation. But considering it was all word of mouth, it wouldn't have been quoted word for word by every single person, would it? It would have been explained in hundreds of different ways. As long as the person you're talking to got the message. Use whatever words you want, as long as they get the message and they behave themselves. So, yeah, they're just referring to the book of Deuteronomy here. That's right, the 5 books of Moses were originally an oral instruction that was only later written onto scrolls. In fact, the oral transmission of Yahusha's instructions was not only the norm for this era, it actually had some advantages, because it meant that it was the responsibility of the tribal elders to maintain the integrity of the traditions they would pass on to the next generation, who would in turn pass them on to the following generation, and so on and so forth. The point is, if the next generation tried to change something, the elders were able to step up and refute it. Damn, how times have changed. Interesting, isn't it? It was all carried down word of mouth. It was a responsibility of the tribal elders to maintain the integrity of the traditions they would pass on to the next generation. I just found that fascinating. And it explains why Yahusha was constantly saying to them, this is to remind the children, this is to remind the next generation, your descendants. Every year when you come together, remember to tell them, when you rise up, when you sit down, when you go to sleep, when you walk along the path, when you bind them on your forehead, bind them on your, which is basically to speak about them, keep them on your heart, your mind, behave them, all those sort of things is constantly, because they weren't written down, unless somebody scratched a few things into some stones or whatever. But apart from the 10 commandments that were written on stone, most of it was oral until some of these books were written down. So I find that fascinating, don't you? It's all word of mouth. So Moses then told the priests and leaders, each year the Israelites must come together to celebrate the festival of booths at the place where Yahuwah chooses to rest his name. You must read these divine laws and instructions to the people at the festival every 7th year, the year of release, when the loans don't need to be repaid. So he's talking about these instructions, Deuteronomy, that he's been writing here on the mountain, speaking to them about before he dies. He's talking about these instructions, because all the other, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, they're all great, but he's kind of putting everything into a package of what's important now in Deuteronomy. Some of the instructions have shifted slightly in their behaviour because they're going into the land. So he wants them to get the most freshest, accurate, meaningful version of the instructions that they could possibly have. So carry them around with you, put them next to the ark or whatever he said higher up, and do what you're meant to do. And when you come together at the feasts, don't forget to read them, because there's only one copy, I imagine, at this point. So don't forget to read them in a big loud voice. Get up there and read them to everybody. There are a few things etched in the big stone monuments, remember, with a plaster on them and things like that, for people could remind themselves and remember. But the scrolls, read them. And everyone must come, men, women, children, and even the foreigners who live in the towns. And each new generation will listen and learn to follow Yahweh their Elohim with fear and trembling, and to do exactly what is said in his divine laws. Each new generation will listen and learn. Do what you got to do to make the word applicable to the next new generation. Because if Yahusha tarries on and doesn't come back for a while, you and I might be dead. But the next generation, who's going to run with it? The message. Yahusha then told Moses, okay, look, we've got red writing. Yahusha's stepping in and speaking now. That's exciting. Yahusha then told Moses, you will die soon. So bring Joshua to the tabernacle, and I will appoint him the leader of Yisrael. And I'll mention this when we go into Joshua, but I'm calling him Joshua just so we don't get confused, because in this translation, I'm calling the creator Yahusha, because it was Yahusha all along, except in the for all commentary reasons, I'm calling him Yahusha because that's who he was. So Yahusha spoke to Yahusha, and then Yahusha spoke to Yahusha would get a bit confusing. So Joshua, I'm going to call him Joshua for the sake of this translation. So soon you will die, Moses. So bring Joshua to the tabernacle, and I will appoint him the leader of Israel. So Moses and Joshua went to the tabernacle, and Yahusha appeared in a thick cloud right over the entrance to the tent, saying, Moses, you will soon die, but Yisrael is going into a land where other wicked deities are worshipped. And Yisrael will reject me and start bowing down to these idols. They will break the blood covenant of deliverance I made with them, and I will be so furious that I'll abandon them, ignore them, and hide my face from them. I will send disasters and suffering that will nearly wipe them out. Finally, they will realize that the disasters happened because I abandoned them. For they will cry out to me, but I will ignore them, because they were evil and started following other deities. Moses and Joshua, I'm going to give you the words to a new song. So write them down and teach the song to the Israelites. Did they have to sing it? Did they have to sing the song to them? How did they? Was there a rehearsal? How did they teach them the song, or was it just words? Who knows? It's called it a song. Teach this song to the Israelites. If they learn it, they will know what I want them to do. And so they will have no excuse for not obeying me. That's true, because when you teach children a song, or teach anybody a song, they remember the words. I put the 10 Commandments once into a song. I used to sing it when my kids were younger, when they were going to sleep. And it was a great way for me to remember them all too, and them. So singing and music makes a big difference. It goes into your brain a lot easier, making little rhymes and riddles and songs out of things. But wait till you see how long this song is. So if you teach them the song, they will have no excuse for not obeying me. For I am bringing them into the land that I promised their ancestors, a rich land with milk and honey, and the Israelites will have more than enough food to eat. But they will get fat and turn their backs on me and start bowing down to those stupid idols. Yes, the Israelites will reject me and break the blood covenant that I made with them. So when I punish the Israelites and their descendants with suffering and disasters, I will remind them that this song is a witness of me, and they'll have no excuse for not obeying me. I will give them the land that I promised, but I know only too well the way they are going to live later on. So Moses wrote down the words. Moses wrote down the words to the song right away, and he taught it to the Israelites. And Yahusha told Joshua, be brave and strong, for I will help you lead the people of Israel into the land that I've promised them. Moses wrote down all these divine laws and instructions in a book. Then he went to the Levites who carried the ark of the blood covenant witness and said, This is the book of Yahuwah's divine laws. This is the book of Yahuwah's divine laws. Keep it beside the ark that holds the blood covenant. Keep it beside the ark that holds the blood covenant that Yahuwah your Elohim made with Israel. And this book is proof that you know how Yahuwah wants you to behave. I know how stubborn and rebellious you and the rest of the Israelites are, for you've rebelled against Yahuwah before I came along, while I've been alive there with you, and it will only get worse after I'm gone. You were doing it before I came along, you're doing it right in my face when I'm alive with you, so what on earth is it going to be like when I'm gone? You are going to rebel. So call together the leaders and officials of the tribes of Israel, and I will bring this book and read every word of it to you. And I will call the earth and the sky as witnesses that all of you know what you're supposed to do. The earth and the sky are your witnesses that you know what you're supposed to do. For soon I'm going to die, and I know that in the future you will stop caring about what is right and wrong. And so you will disobey Yahuwah and stop behaving the way I told you to. Then Yahuwah will be angry and terrible things will happen to you. In case I forget, it's interesting that he put it beside. What did he say? Keep it beside. This book of Deuteronomy, any other bits and pieces he's writing down, he said keep it beside the ark that holds the blood covenant. What was inside the ark? We had a bowl of manna, I think it was, a pot of manna. We had Aaron's bud that rotted, Aaron's rod that budded, as proof of the Levitical authority to be the priesthood, so no one else could try and take that. And then, of course, we had the stone tablets of the blood covenant, the 10 Commandments. So those three things in there are indisputable. That's why they were inside the Ark of the Blood Covenant. So the fact that these scrolls, and I'm not certain, other things might have been put next to them as time went on too, that the Levite priests had to look after. But we know for sure here, he's just told them, put these divine laws, which we know right now are the book of Deuteronomy, put them next to the Ark. So even though these words might be reworded and things like that, and some instructions are applicable for the land and some might sort of fizzle out a bit because, 2,000, 3,000 years later, it's not as relevant. We know that what was inside the ark, the foundational blood covenant, the 10 words, don't change. They were written on stone, for goodness sake. So interesting to anybody who might tell you that the 10 Commandments are done away with. That's the law. It's done away. No, it's written on our hearts. The 10 words. I mean, you can put them into colloquial 21st century if you want. Love Yahuwah more than anything else. Don't worship idols, And what's the third one? Always use Yahusha's name. Rest on the Shabbat. Do what your mother and father say. Honor your mother and father. Don't murder. Don't break your marriage. You can reword things. Don't lie, don't steal, don't covet. You can reword them slightly, but they don't change. They're relevant, They are relevant, never been done away with. So, when we come to the Song of Moses. Moses called a meeting of all the people of Israel so he could teach them the words to the song that Yahusha had given him. Here are the words. Here we go, guys. This is the song. It's a long song. Earth and sky, listen to what I say. Yisrael, I will teach you, and my words will be like gentle rain on tender young plants, or like dew on the grass. Join me in lifting up the wonderful name of Yahuwah our Elohim. For Yahuwah is a mighty rock. Here's our first rock that we're going to talk about. Rock and roll. For Yahuwah is a mighty rock, and he never does any wrong and can always be trusted to bring justice. But you lie and cheat and are twisted and crooked towards him. You've disgraced yourselves and are no longer worthy to be his children. They'll be like, what? I don't think I want to sing this song anymore. It's a bit heavy, man. No, you've lied and cheated, twisted and crooked towards him. You've disgraced yourselves, no longer worthy to be called his children. Yisrael, Yahuwah is your father, the one who created you, but you've repaid him by being foolish. Think about the past generations. Ask your parents or any of your elders, and they'll tell you that Yahuwah the Most High gave land to every nation, setting their boundaries according to the number of the children of Yisrael. 70 nations based on Jacob's 70 people who went down into Egypt in Genesis. That's one interpretation most people have. The other interpretation is 70 nations according to the number of divine beings assigned to oversee them. That was a bit cuckoo, that one, but that's what people are saying. Saying back at Babel that all the demons and all the divine beings, that even some of them that had fallen, were assigned by Yahusha to look after the 70 nations. I find that a bit weird myself, but that's what they're saying. I'll show you here. If the Masoretic text is used, the end of the verse is rendered according to the number of the sons of Yisrael. That's what I think I'm going to go with. However, if the Septuagint or the Dead Sea Scrolls are used, the end of the verse is rendered as according to the sons of Elohim. Well, we know the sons of Elohim were Malachim. So the sons of Elohim went into the daughters of men. You know, back in Noah's day, the Malachim, the Nephilim were born. You know, so sons of Elohim. So that's apparently what the Dead Sea Scrolls, the originals, and the Septuagint say. It should be rendered according to the land was distributed according to the number of sons of Elohim. Did Yahusha assign certain divine beings, some of which are now disobedient, to watch over the earth back at Babel when he scattered the languages and formed all the different nations? An interesting thought, eh? Is this disobedience from the spirit world why the earth is in such a depraved state? I'm not going to go into it, but there's lots of instances in the scriptures where divine beings are fighting with one another. You know, Satan's one of them. He was going up there to the throne and accusing people. Was he assigned to be the accuser? You know, questions. I don't have the answers. I haven't gone that far into the text yet, but it does seem a bit bizarre to me that there are spirit beings ruling over each individual nation of the earth. What spirit being is ruling over Australia? See how bizarre it sounds? So, or should we just use the Jacob's Kids version of the text? I'd prefer to, but that's just me, you decide. So you can look into that if you want. I can't be bothered right now. It's just out of my wheelhouse, I'm afraid. I don't understand that really. Haven't read too much about that. Know a lot about the Malachim, fallen, Nephilim, all that sort of stuff, but as far as there being nations that are ruled over by 70 different spirits, does seem a bit bizarre to me. So if you know something about it, jot me a message at the bottom of the video. I welcome your knowledge. Thank you. I'm going on because I'm nearly at the end of Deuteronomy, so I want to go on. So, for Yahuwah himself, we're still in the song. We're still singing the song. For Yahuwah himself takes care of Yisrael, for he discovered you in a barren desert, filled with howling winds, and became your fortress, protecting and watching over you like the pupil of his own eye. Interesting. Watches over you like the pupil of his own eye. The pupil of his eye. You know? When you were a kid, did you used to play that game where you'd put your face so close to your friends and look into their eye so that you could see your own reflection in the pupil of their eyeball? Kids do that, get in their face. Kids do it to adults too, get in their face to try and see themselves in your eyeball. This text is telling us, what this text is telling us is that Yahusha's watchful eye is so close to Yisrael that he can literally see her being reflected back to him in his own pupil. And he will protect and fight for her as his bride. This is a statement of just how intimate Yahusha's relationship with Yahusha. This is a statement of how intimate Yahusha's relationship with Yisrael is. The common and mistaken interpretation is that Yisrael is so precious to him and the apple of his eye, that if you even touch his chosen nation, you are poking him in the eye. But that isn't the Hebraic thought, according to this commentary anyway. So that's interesting, isn't it? That's how close he wants to be. So you can see your own reflection in his eye, and likewise. Yahuwah was like an eagle teaching its young to fly, always ready to swoop down and catch them on its back. Yisrael, Yahuwah led you, and without the aid of a foreign deity, led you and delivered you. There is definitely no growth in comfort, is there? No growth in comfort. Imagine being dropped from a huge mountain to allow you to develop your wing strength enough to fly, like an eagle teaching its young to fly. They've got to lift them up in the sky and then drop them and see if they fly. That's pretty freaky, isn't it? That's how Yahusha teaches us sometimes. Until we get our strength to fly and flow and run our race on our own, like it's full on. There's no growth in comfort. You're out of your comfort zone, and this is how Yahusha matures us and strengthens us, builds our character. He helped you capture the land. Your fields were rich with grain, olive trees grew in your stony soil, and honey was found among the rocks. Your flocks and herds produced milk and honey, and you got choice meat from your sheep and goats that grazed in Bashan. Your wheat was the finest, and you drank the best wine. Yisrael, you grew fat and rebelled against Yahuwah your Elohim, your creator. You rejected the mighty rock, your only deliverance. You rejected the mighty rock, your only deliverance. What does deliverance mean? What's that in Hebrew? Who's that referring to? This is a future prophecy of Yisrael rejecting Yahusha. Because Yahusha means Yahuwah is my deliverance. Yahuwah plus deliverance is Yahusha. So you rejected the mighty rock, your deliverance. That's Yahusha. Future prophecy, guys. They're going to reject Yahusha again, himself, when he comes along in the flesh. You made Yahuwah jealous and angry by bowing down to the abominations, those foreign deities and idols. You offered sacrifices to demons, those useless deities that never helped you, and even offered sacrifices to new idols that your ancestors had never even followed before. You turned away from Elohim, your creator. You forgot the mighty rock, the source of your life. You were Yahuwah's children, but you made him angry. Then he rejected you and said, let me hide my face from them and see what happens to them then, for they're a perverse generation who have no trust or belief in me. You bowed down to worthless idols and made me jealous and angry. Now I'll send a cruel, worthless nation to make you jealous and angry. My people, I will breathe out fire that sends you down to the world of the dead. It will scorch your farmlands and burn deep down under the mountains. I'll send disaster after disaster to strike you like arrows. You'll be struck by starvation, deadly diseases, fangs of wild animals, and poisonous snakes. Young and old alike will be killed in the streets and terrified at home. I wanted to scatter you so no one would remember that you had ever lived. But I dreaded the sound of your enemies saying, we defeated Yisrael with no help from Yahuwah. People of Israel, that's what Yahuwah had said to you. But you don't have that's what Yahuwah has said to you, but you don't have good sense, and you have never listened to advice. If you did, you could see where you are headed. How could one enemy soldier chase 1,000 of Israel's troops? Or how could two of theirs pursue 10,000 of ours? It can only happen if Yahuwah stops protecting Israel and lets the enemy win. Even our enemies know that only our Elohim is a mighty rock. Our enemies are grapevines rooted in the fields of Sodom and Gomorrah. The grapes they produce are full of bitter poison. Their wine is more deadly than cobra venom. But Yahuwah has written a list of their crimes and locked it in his vault. Soon our enemies will get what they deserve. Suddenly they will slip, and total disaster will quickly follow. When only a few of Yahuwah's people remain, when their strength is gone, and some of them are slaves, Yahuwah will feel sorry for them and give them justice. But first Yahuwah will say, hang on a second, you ran for safety to other deities. What, couldn't they help you? But you offered them wine and your best sacrifices. Can't these idols help you now or give you protection? Don't you understand? I'm the only Elohim. There are no others. I am the one who takes life and gives it again. I punished you with suffering, and I can heal you, and nothing can stop me. And I make this solemn promise, just as I live forever, I will take revenge on my hateful enemies. I will sharpen this. Take this on, guys. This is what's happening in the world today. I will sharpen my sword and let it flash like lightning. My arrows will get drunk on enemy blood. My sword will taste the flesh and the blood of the enemy. It will kill prisoners, cut off the heads of their leaders. What's happening in the world today, guys? Wars, violence, aggression, hatred, natural disasters, lightning, tsunamis, natural disasters, you know. My sword will flash like lightning. It's all happening, guys. So tell the sky to celebrate. We're still in the song here. Tell the sky to celebrate and all deities to bow down to Yahuwah, because he will take revenge on those hateful enemies who killed his people. He will forgive the crimes of Yisrael and purify their land. Moses spoke the words of the song. That was the song. I didn't pick up any chorus, did you? No bridge. Pretty tedious, that song, wasn't it? Imagine putting music to that. It's a 35-minute song. Anyway, Moses spoke the words of the song so that all Israelites could hear, and Joshua helped him. And when Moses had finished, he said, always remember this song that I've taught you today. Always remember it. You have to be saying a lot to remember it, wouldn't you? It's a long song. Always remember this song that I've taught you today. I guess that's why they wrote it down. And let it be a warning. Let it be a warning, a witness, a warning that you must teach your children to obey everything in the book of Yahuwah's divine laws. For they aren't useless. They're not empty words, but can give you a long life in the land that you are going to take. Interesting, guys. That's the 2 chapters today. Let's talk about 2 songs. 2 songs? What is it that Revelation 15 says is being sung by Yahusha's army as they defeat the beast, its image, and those who took on the number of its name? 2 songs. They're singing the Song of Moses, which is what we just read, and the Song of the Lamb. The idea, of course, is that Yahusha's warriors are singing the Song of Moses as a victory song and as a remembrance of Yahusha's age-old promises of redemption and judgment that were made long before Moses passed away. So now we see that the Song of Moses is not passé or done away with once Messiah came along, or even in our day, or even at Yahusha's return. Nor is it only for Yisrael, but applies to the whole world. And at this event in Revelation 15, when Yahusha comes back, the Song of Moses applies to the unrepentant world that has decided to be disobedient and against Yahusha, and instead has thrown in with the satanically controlled anti-Messiah, the beast. So you can see that this song is going to pop up again in Revelation. So it's pretty important that we know what it is. And of course it's all tying in the blessings and the curses, isn't it? If they don't, well, it's not tying in, but it's also prophesying as well that they're going to disobey me. They're going to worship idols. They're going to whore themselves out, and I'm going to cut them off, hide my face from them, punish them, enslave them, all those sort of things. But then they will wake up, and then anybody who comes against them, I will slaughter. Be drunk on the blood of my enemies. Let's finish this video talking about the mighty rock, because it came up a few times. I'm not going to go back to it, but all those, I put it in capitals, all the mighty rocks in that song. The rock of my salvation, or deliverance as we say. Mighty rock. We saw the expression mighty rock used several times in the Song of Moses, referring to Yahusha as our rock. Indeed identifies him as the uniquely chosen Son who dwelt among us. And obviously this was an issue that didn't sit well with the ruling Sadducees and Pharisees during his time in Jerusalem. Who cares if it doesn't sit well with them? Stuff them. Yeah, duck fat. Let's look at the word rock in Hebrew. Sir. Sir, please sir. A cliff, a rock or boulder, a refuge, cliff edge, mighty rock, sharp, stone, strength, strong. Do you think it's referring to little pebbles or lucky stones that you pick up in the lake? Cliff, rock, boulder, refuge, cliff edge, mighty rock, sharp, stone, strength, strong. This is, of course, we know this is who Yahusha is. We know at least that much of the word to know that we're referring to Yahusha here. And if you didn't know that, let's look at the scriptures, a few scriptures about the word rock. Yahuwah is my rock, my fortress and my deliverer. Yes, my Elohim is my rock, and I trust only in him. For he's my shield, the horn of my deliverance, my high tower, my refuge, my saviour, sparing me from violence. That's in 2 Samuel 22. And again in 2 Samuel 22 it says, Yahuwah lives, and blessed is my rock, the Elohim of my deliverance. Isaiah 51, listen to me. If you're trying to walk obediently and seek Yahuwah, then look to the rock who created you, and never forget where you came from. The Hebrew text says more, the rock you were hewn from, the rock you were hewn from, and the pit you were dug from. Well, the rock you were hewn from means you were created from him, and the pit you were dug from is where you came from. So, pit you came from is where you came from. So, look to the rock who created you and never forget where you came from. All our parents travelled under the same cloud, drinking the same spiritual drink from the rock that followed them. And that rock was Yahusha. So there's no mystery. He's telling us what all the secrets are. It was Yahusha. Yahusha's the one that fed them, travelled with them. The cloud by day, fire by night. It was Yahusha. Everything was supernatural about their journey. Luke 6, he's like a man who built a house, digging deep and laying its foundations on the rock, so that when the floods came and the waters beat violently against the house, it would not shake or crumble, because it was founded upon the rock. What is the house? The tabernacle, us, our vessel. Where is it to be built? On a rock, our foundation of belief, thought process, what we consider right and wrong, divine laws, scripture, Torah, the rock, on Yahusha's word. That's what we walk on. If we get outside counsel, information, thoughts that aren't to do or are the opposite to this, we reject them. So that was the scriptures regarding the rock. I mean, there's hundreds of them. These are the best ones. So 𝗪, which was Hebrew for rock, 𝗪 is not some generic stone that we can just pick up off the ground. Hell, it doesn't even mean really a huge boulder. If we were to really translate 𝗪 correctly, it would be rendered as a mountain or cliff, because this word is really referring to a solid ridge or mound whose roots are firmly entrenched in the earth below, but still tall enough to reach up to the sky above. Solid, unmovable, unshaking. A 𝗪 towers impressively over everything it overlooks, whether it be plains, valleys, rivers, or small towns and big cities with teeming populations. And actually, referring to Yahusha as our rock absolutely fits in well with that other common term. This term, the rock, absolutely fits in well with that other common term used in scripture when referring to Yahusha, which is 𝚑𝐻addai. What does 𝗪 have to do with 𝚑𝐻addai? What does a rock have to do with 𝚑𝐻addai? Do you remember when we went through Genesis? I do. Recall that 𝚑𝐻addai does not just mean Yahuwah Almighty. That's what we're always taught. 𝚑𝐻addai means Almighty. No, because it's derived from an Akkadian word that just means mountain. Shaddai just means mountain. That's right, folks. 𝚑𝐻addai quite literally means mighty Elohim of the mountain. Pretty much just Elohim of the mountain. I added mighty Elohim of the mountain because I liked it, but more literally it's Elohim of the mountain. So you had an Elohim of the water, because we're dealing with superstitious pagan Middle Eastern ancient society here, and they had hundreds of deities, a deity of the water, a deity of the crops, a deity of this, a deity of that. Well, Yahusha was always known as the deity of the mountain, Elohim of the mountain. So as false as we might see that today, because there's only one. There's only Yahusha. Back then, they were very polytheistic. And Yahusha was always associated. Even Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob didn't necessarily believe there was only one. Not at that point in history. And he was always known as the mighty Elohim of the mountain, 𝗪𝗟𝗪. Remember, this was the name that Yahusha used when he appeared to Jacob. So he kind of even encouraged it. If you're going to be polytheistic at this point, I'm the one up on the mountain, higher than everybody else. And don't forget, I'm the one up here, almost up in the sky. There's no one higher than me. I'm the Elohim up in the mountain. Don't forget it. So, this was the name used when Yahusha appeared to Jacob. So we can see the intimate connection between 𝐴, which is rock, and Shaddai, as they both mean a mountain or a towering huge cliff. And this also fits in well with the ancient Middle Eastern mindset at the time that believed that their deities dwelt in high places. So, wasn't that fascinating? I found that fascinating. How does Yahusha truly function amongst his treasured bride? How close does he want to be? He wants his face up against your face so that you can see your reflection in his eyeball, and he can see your reflection in his eyeball. So your noses are touching. That's how intimate. It's all metaphoric and symbolic, of course. That's how he's closer than that, because he's actually inside us. So how amazing is this, guys? So how does he want to function amongst his bride? He wants to be in every single thought. How do we know that? Because he says, check your thoughts. If he didn't want to be in every thought, he wouldn't tell you to check them. He's sending us thoughts all the time, and we miss them because we're too busy rejecting certain thoughts and listening to thoughts that tantalize and tempt and seduce and woo and, numb, got to check your thoughts to see if Yahusha's talking to you. How close does he want to be with us? Just dealt with that, didn't I? Isn't that why we have direct access to him through a portal door? So are you going to go in to connect? It's up to you. If you haven't been immersed, you have no divine inspiration. You have no connection to the higher dimension of Shamayim, where Yahusha currently is. So how can you connect? You can't. So that's all we've got today, guys. It's very exciting where we're going. I mean, the next video is our last video of Deuteronomy, and we're going to be talking about Moses, the great shepherd of Yisrael, and how he was sort of the shadow of what Yahusha was going to be. There's no greater prophet like Moses was. So I love you guys. Stay strong. See you later.